Hey y'all, welcome to Zig's Woodshed. My name is Monica and welcome to the 12 days of Christmas. I have a project video coming for you every day for the next 12 days, and I thought what better way to kick off this Christmas season than with a Christmas countdown. And so I couldn't decide during the design process which one I wanted to do. So I have three different options for you. One is an ornament. So I have two different styles actually of ornaments. And so this is a Christmas countdown ornament. You've just got a little rotating wheel that has the numbers on it, and it reveals the number of days until Christmas as you rotate the wheel. So two different ornaments. I have three different advent calendars for you, and they are all designed to hold the hazelnut truffles. You guys know which ones I'm talking about. And then a Christmas countdown where you drop in the snowflakes. It's a little snow globe. You drop in the snowflakes and count down until Christmas. So these are super fun projects. The goal of these is just to give you some ideas. They're going to be super quick videos. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, first up, we're going to cut out some of the pieces for the advent calendar and the rotating ornament. Now, in order to be efficient with time and materials, I am going to cut like with like. So anything that is cut out of the same material, I'm going to go ahead and cut it all at the same time. Right now on the laser bed, I have some 1/4-inch natural plywood that I have already got masked, and I am going to do this in a couple different layers. So I've got a score layer as well as a fill layer, and then of course the cut layer. So I'm going to do the fill layer first because we are going to actually fill it in with some powder coating. If you haven't seen my video on the methods that I tested for paint filling and engrave, check that out. So we are going to use that method on this plywood today, and then I will turn on the score layer and then we'll do the cut layer. All right, one thing I'm going to do is mask off this area right here because I'm using two different colors here and I don't want them to mix. So I'm going to run a layer for this color and then a separate layer for this color. Make sure you disconnect the air. Friendly reminder, if you are turning off your air while you're using your laser, you will likely need to clean your lens. And reconnect the air. All right, top layers are done. Next, we are going to cut out all of the support pieces for the layers, and that's going to be done on just plain regular old 1/4-inch plywood. The advent calendars are going to be front heavy when you put the little chocolates in. So I've got these little back supports that I'm going to use. There's an angle, and so it will tilt the whole thing back so that it kind of counterbalances it a little bit. Now I did not cut the final piece because I need to use my calipers to determine how wide I need the slots to be. So we'll get those measured, update light burn, update the slots in light burn, and then we'll get those cut out, and then we should be ready for assembly on the advent calendars. For the snow globe, I'm actually going to use a navy painted plywood, and then I'm going to create some faux snow on it, and you'll see what I mean by that in just a minute. Then I'm going to try something different with one of the advent calendars, try a different color and see how that turns out. Then we're going to cut out some acrylic. It's all the little embellishments for all the pieces. So we've got clear, red, white, black, and green. So we're going to get all that cut out and then we'll move on to assembly. All right, before we get started with assembly, I am going to put some snow onto the snow globe. In order to do this, you're going to need some white paint. This is just some old white paint that I really don't use for anything other than creating snow. And then you want a doggy toothbrush. So there's two ends. One is a small end, one is a larger end. So you can kind of use either end to get the look you're going for. And because this is an old bucket of paint, I actually just dip my toothbrush down in there. So what you want to do is dip it in, and then don't saturate the whole bristle, just the top of it, and then you want to dab it off. So what you don't want is big globs of paint, creating streaks in your snow. So now that I've dabbed off a little bit of paint, I'm just going to use my finger to flick some snow onto the snow globe. And I don't need to do the whole thing, just the round part, because obviously the bottom part's going to be covered up. So it's just as simple as that. All right, y'all, it is time for the best part. We are going to assemble everything. Now off camera, I did go ahead and pull off all the little bits of masking. Y'all don't need to see how to do that. So we are going to start with the ornaments because those are the smallest and the easiest. So let's go ahead and start with this Christmas tree one. And so the rotating ornaments have 4 main pieces and then the embellishments. So you've got the back piece with the scored line where you're going to put this circle. Now this circle is where the numbers, they're going to rotate around that circle. So this is the only bit that gets glued. And then of course you have the front piece that has the, Merry Christmas or Days Until Christmas or whatever, and then the window where the number shows through. So we are just going to take some CA glue and we're just going to start gluing things. So I'm going to glue down, you know what, while I'm thinking about it. So this bit has kind of an imperfection. So where it didn't cut all the way through. So you want to kind of line those bits up because it's going to make the rotation much smoother. I did learn that while I was prototyping. So we're actually going to put this down here and we're going to line up the imperfections. All right, glue that down. Now, again, you only want to glue this center piece. We're just going to use some activator to get that going. So I like to line up the 24 at the very top so that I can make sure the window is aligned at the top and everything is going to function properly. All right, again, you're only going to put glue in the center piece and then you're just going to line it up, make sure it's flush around the edges. And because it's cold in the shop today, I am going to use some activator. Hopefully it'll get down in there. Yeah, there we go. I don't know how it does it, but the activator just can get anywhere. All right, so let's make sure it's functioning. Perfect. We're going to give it a full rotation and everything is running smoothly, which is awesome. Now I am going to glue on the tree. This one is the one with the tree. Now I do recommend, especially with acrylic, having double stick tape, but I did not do that for whatever reason. So I'm going to use the glue sparingly because it can cause some hazing if glue gets onto the acrylic, and you definitely don't want that on your ornament. Now it does take a hot minute for the glue to cure when it comes to acrylic, so we're just going to put this one off to the side and then we are going to work on the other one. Okay, so this is the Santa one. And the assembly process is the exact same. So I'm not going to bore you with that. We're just going to assemble it really quickly. All right, on the Santa ornament, the feet are slightly different. So I actually had to pop off the foot and I have some damage on the ornament. But I did do the best I could to patch it. So when you are assembling the Santa rotating ornament, make sure you dry fit it first. All right, so now let's move on to the snow globe. So for this, you're going to need a base piece, an open piece where you can drop in the snowflakes, and then obviously the globe part. Now I did make this in 2 pieces because acrylic is so expensive. So I did make a globe piece and then a base piece. So you want to make sure whatever you use for the base is the same thickness as your clear acrylic, so that everything aligns properly. And then of course you're going to need a front piece. And then I have Days Until Christmas on the base of the snow globe. And I did cut out a little template that I'm going to put on here so that I can line up the letters appropriately. So this is really just super simple assembly. I'm just going to attach all the pieces together with some CA glue, and then we will drop in these little snowflakes as a little Christmas countdown. All right, so the snow globe is finished, and so there are these little snowflakes, and you are just supposed to drop them in, and you just count down to Christmas. Now, I probably should have, I didn't cut out all of them. I probably should have started with 24 instead of 1. So But you get the idea. So it's a countdown to Christmas. You start with 24 and you count down to 1 and you just drop in all the little snowflakes and it becomes its own little snow globe. So this is a little tippy. And so I will, I'm going to create a base. So I will have all of the files available for you guys if you guys do want to pick them up. But I will create a base for this so that it's not so tippy. So, all right, let's move on to the advent calendars. All right, I have 3 advent calendars for you. So the first is a little Santa Claus advent calendar, and there are 4 pieces to this. So you've got a back with some slots in it. This will end up being front heavy, like I mentioned before. So I've got some pieces on the back that will slot in to kind of give it a little tilt. And then 2 pieces of, it's just like an opening. So when the truffles go in here, there's room for them once you put them in the hole. So there's 2 of these and then a front, and then we've got the little Santa Claus bits just like with the ornament. So we're gonna go ahead and assemble this really quickly. Now I do like to use a right angle for this. It just helps get everything aligned so that there's no, well, misalignment. So anything with a right angle, I like to use this little jig. All right, we're gonna let Santa dry for just a minute. Is he dry? Okay, he's dry. All right. Now we are going to slot in our little angle pieces. So you can glue these in or you can leave them as friction fit so that these will store flat during the off season. If you guys caught my lantern video, you guys know that I'm big on storing flat, items that store flat for the season. All right, now we are going to fill our truffles. All right, how fun is this? So I did leave this spot open at the top where you can put somebody's name that says like Smith Family Christmas or something like that. Or you could have, you know, Santa with a little sleigh, or I've got another one that I'm about to show you that's got a manger scene on it. But what a great little treat for kids during the Christmas season. So, you know, another cool idea would be to have, for those who have multiple kids in the family, you could have their name up top. So you could have like Noah or Jack or Nyla, just, you know, right on top here. And then each kid could have their own little advent calendar. So that would get very expensive. These truffles are a little pricey. I was able to score them buy one, get one free this week. So that was awesome. But the other advent calendars are assembled the exact same way. So I'm just going to run you through that really quickly. And then we will do a recap of what I learned throughout this process on all of these, some tips and tricks for you guys if you do want to make these yourself. All right. And here is the last one. Now this one is, because the center of gravity is lower, I actually don't have the little supports on the back of this. You could add that if you wanted to, but I think these turned out so cute. I am so excited. So let's gather everything up and we will talk about my recommendations for how to make these better. Okay, so let's start with the snow globe. So I already mentioned that this is it's a little rocky on the bottom, so I'm gonna fix that. But one thing you want to make sure of is that whatever size, so you can totally cut the snowflakes out of wood, but keep in mind that whatever thickness your piece is right here, your snowflakes need to be slightly thinner. So in my case, I used 1/4 inch plywood for the piece that has an opening, and then 1/8 inch snowflakes, so they would easily drop in, they wouldn't get hung up on the white acrylic. So in hindsight, I would probably use a different color so the snowflakes pop a little bit more. But overall, I think this one's awesome. And then while we're working with the things that are navy, so I absolutely love this Nativity Advent calendar. What I don't love about it, hey, what I don't love about it is the colors I chose. So I think the Nativity in blue is beautiful, but I wish I had done white letters for the numbers. But that's okay. You live and you learn. I wanted to do something other than just plain wood. You could totally make this out of acrylic, and you don't have to paint fill it. You could cut out little acrylic numbers and put those on the front. So those are some options as well. Now this one does have the slots on the back also. And then this Joy to the World advent calendar, really no changes on this. Again, you could probably do it out of a different material, or I would use, especially since this is standalone, it doesn't have any of the supports, you want to use material that is thick enough to make it beefy enough to stand up on its own. So this is 4 layers of 1/4 inch plywood, so it is almost an inch thick. So that is my recommendation if you are going to have it be a standalone piece. Again, you could also put the slots on the back and have it tilt, and that would be perfectly fine as well. And then the ornaments, we kind of covered this during the assembly process. But one thing you want to make sure if you're going to design this on your own, to make sure that the hang hole for whatever you're going to use to hang the ornament is clear of your rotating piece. You definitely don't want there to be any sort of interference with that hole. And then you could also, this doesn't even have to be an ornament. This could totally be a wall hanging, or, you know, a door wreath or something like that. You could completely upsize it and make it much, much bigger than it is. It doesn't have to be an ornament. So like I said, this is the 12 days of Christmas. I will have a project video coming for you every day for the first part of December. And I am so glad that y'all hung out with me today, and I will see you on the next one.